Hey, what's up, guys? It's Apollo Uchiha here, and this is a new series as well. And if you haven't, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. This is What If Naruto and Konoha 12 Watch the Future. And if you like this one as well, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. If you haven't, and without further ado, let's begin our story. Spiky sun-kissed hair stood out amongst others in the market area of Konoha. Bustling and hustling, civilians and ninjas alike went about their duties. Posterious marketmen shouted their products and prices with a large grin on their faces. Curious customers went from shop to shop to find what they were looking for. Shinobis of various ranks headed towards the gates with bags on their backs, and unseen to the eye, armed forces leapt from building to building, slipping in and out of the shadows. This is the scene we find Naruto Uzumaki, the blonde-haired boy, walking with a loopy grin on his face, whiskers like birthmarks stretching wide to accommodate his smile, curling eyes filled to the brim and eagerness. The boy was short for his age and certainly not the most fashionable forward person. Blue sandals led to the orange shin-length trousers, crabbed in a bright orange jacket with blue shoulders and white collars. The newly minted Kenin strolled down the streets, his hands interlocked around his back of his head. On the forehead, where he once wore green goggles, the boy now proudly donned the forehead protector of Konoha. The jubilant boy was unaware of the mild glare sent his way or the wide berth others he passed gave him. No, he couldn't care less about that now. He was finally a ninja Tatebayo. The boy finally arrived at his destination. In front of him stood a tall red tower. Circular-shaped buildings littered the small compound, the most significant of them being the one that bore the insignia of fire, the Hokage's Tower. The boy had woken up earlier this morning on the others of his new Jonin sensei, Kakashi Hatake. According to the silver-haired man, it would seem that the Hokage had requested an important meeting with the rookies of this year, so they were to meet in the Hokage's office half an hour past 7. The boy entered the mass construct and found himself walking along the curved, green-padded hallway towards the office. Several ninjas passed him, some clutching paperwork close to their chest, while others merely walking around. His steps echoed silently throughout the hallway, and soon Naruto found himself in front of a large wooden door leading to his destination. Foregoing protocol and general etiquette, he simply pushed the door open. "Morning, old man," the Meljan Joriki greeted. Said grandfather. Hizen Sarutobi was a man long past his prime, his current self a mere shadow to the man who was hailed as the god of shinobi, but despite his decline in power, the man was still revered as an important figure in Konoha. His once brown spiky hair had washed down to a ashen gray. His tan tone was now lighter, and wrinkles and liver pattern adorned his face. A grim expression was etched into his eyes and face as he looked at the individual sitting in front of him in his office. Varying sets of persons watched with varying emotions running through them, ranging from fear to slight nervousness to absolute aloofness. Seated closest to the Hokage were 11 children. Each had a different set of gears, but one thing similar about them all were the forehead protectors they wore, signifying them as the shinobi of Konoha. These children were Neji Hyuga, Rock Lee, Tenten, Shikamaru, Nara, Choji Akamichi, Ino Yamanaka, Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame, Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, and besides these kids were adults who were all wondering why they were there. These adults included Might Guy, Asuma Sarutobi, Kurenai Yuhi, Kakashi Hatake, Hayashi Yuga, Yoshino Nara, Shikaku Nara, Choza Akamichi, Inoichi Yamanaka, Tsumi Inuzuka, Shibuya Burame, Kizashi Haruno, and Mebuki Haruno. Each of these adults were the representative Jonin sensei and parents of the 11 children there. The Hokage had requested their presence for some reason, only known to himself. "Hokage-sama, if I may ask, why are we here?" The red-eyed Genjutsu mistress of Konoha asked her age superior. "All in due, Kurenai. We're waiting for one more person to arrive," Hiruzen said. "Ha! Never thought I'd see the day when Kakashi is earlier than someone," laughed a bearded man, a lit cigarette in his mouth. "No doubt that Baka would be late." Sakura fumed. "Mama, Sakura, I'm sure Naruto has a good—" Kakashi started to explain before the door swung open, and a mop of golden hair stood more than the bright orange atrocity he called the jumpsuit. "Morning, old man!" The aforementioned Naruto shouted in greeting. With a feral grin, the Vulpine youth flashed the peace sign at the Hokage. "Good morning to you, Naruto-kun. I'm glad to see you made it." The Hokage spoke. His wrinkled features seemingly vanished for a moment as he smiled at the son of his predecessor. "Of course I'd make it, old man. Well, seeing that you're here, we can finally start." The homage started. He looked at the other occupants in the room while Naruto wedged himself between his teammates. His smile weathered as a pronounced frown took its place. Hiruzen got up from his seat before closing the door Naruto had left open. "Now that we're all here, I'd like to explain why I called this meeting in the first place." Seeing that he had their undivided attention, the military leader continued. "I am an old man, and I'm nothing like I used to be back in my prime. Fortunately, there is no need for me to be as active as back in the past due to the somewhat peaceful era we're in." Horizon began, "But there are no guarantee that this will always be so far. I fear that there might be trouble in the future. My senses had worked towards a peaceful time and both had achieved it somewhat, but if there is one thing I learned from then is that there will always be war no matter the era." At this, some of the battle-hardened veterans had nodded their heads in agreement. While it would be great to achieve true peace, that was too idealistic in the shinobi world. "I know what you are saying, Hokage-sama, but what does that have to do with us being here?" "I'll be addressing that now, Shikaku," the god of shinobi spoke. "You see, these 12 young ones in front of us represent the future of our village, and each of you are the ones tasked in their upbringing, so for what I've planned for today, it is necessary for you all to be here." Sarutobi gogged their reactions, which alerted from embarrassment to nervousness at this dictation. What could be so important that not only all the rookies and the teams before, but their joining senses and their parents had to be there, present? Lost in their thoughts, they had missed when the Hokage activated the privacy seals in his office, but they didn't miss when he closed the binds. "What we say, do, and discover in this room stays in this room. Are we clear?" The man's voice was quick and sharp, channeling reserves of his chakra that gave him his fear title. "There are many techniques in this world that have been banned due to their nature. One such of the technique is known as time-space jutsu that we will be using today." "And what is this purpose of this jutsu?" Kakashi asked, being the most familiar with these type of techniques. With his sensei being the Yellow Flash himself, plus the ability of Kamui, he was headed over his shoulders compared to others when it came to space-time techniques. "To see the future," the Hokage answered without hesitation. Silence. "What?" Sakura shouted, cutting the silence out. If she heard correctly, she would have been sure that the Hokage said that they were going to see into the future. "Yes, Sakura-chan, we will be able to see into the future with the usage of this technique, specifically all of yours," Sarutobi spoke while eyeing all the Konoha 12. "But the possible replay," Inoichi tried to explain before he was cut off by the Hokage instead. "Inoichi, this is my decision," Sarutobi said, with his eyes narrowed dangerously. "Or are you opposing my rule?" "No, Hokage-sama, no." "Good." Naruto, having heard everything the Hokage had said, had only one question to say. "Nay, old man, if I do this, will it tell me if I became Hokage or not?" the cheerful boy asked. "Quite possibly, yes," Sarutobi answered. "Then what are we waiting for, Tebayo? Let's get this show on the road." Hiruzen smiled and nodded at his ninja's request. Drawing for a ceiling kit, he began mapping out a matrix on the floor in front of the chairs before repeating the process on a much broader scale on the wall. When he finished, he brought his hands together in a hand sign. The seals glowed blue on his command, and the room was illuminated at the brief light show. Hiruzen turned back to Naruto with a smile on his face. "All right, Naruto-kun, since you're so eager, how about we see your first?" The boy agreed immediately. In the blink of an eye, he was out of a seat and was poking around the seal. How does this work, old man?" Naruto sheepishly grinned, while the Hokage grinned at the Pseudo grandson's antics. "Just stand atop of the seal and channel some of your chakra to the feet. When the seal turns blue, you should stop, okay?" "Got it. Let's do this. Into the future, Tebayo." Within seconds, the seal glowed blue, and the other seals on the wall began to channel and change into a small screen before flickering to life. "Wow, It really does show us the future. I can't believe it, Ino commented with an awestruck look on her face. The blonde rookie was not alone, as many others around her had the same expression to match. This is an ingenious technique, Yashi credited. Before this moment, he couldn't have fathomed such a technique, but he also saw the need to ban such a technique. The consequences were too much extreme. Onto the wall. In the village, persons could be seen walking along with their merry way, a smile on their face and a jig in their steps. But there was a collective set of individuals, however, that caught most persons' attention. Something tells me that Naruto is coming onto the scene soon enough, said Sakura. Back to the wall. Various shinobis and civilians alike watched with barely concealed amusement as they stared at the Hokage's monument. The large monument, which had the faces of past Hokages carved into the side of a cliff, overlooking the entire village. Whenever would look upon the monument, a strong sense of inspiration and pride would swell in their hearts of being a part of this family, the one that bared the will of fire. But now, if someone were to look at the monument, they would go off at what had happened to the massive construct. Why, you may ask? Simple. The Hokage monument had been again defaced. Back at the crowd, Hiruzen could not help but sigh in exasperation at the blonde ninja, who was sheepishly grinning with his hands at the nape of his back. Baka! Sakura shouted at her teammate. Even when you grown up, you're still an idiot, Sakura chested. But Sakura-chan, how do you know even it's me? Naruto pleaded in his defense. Sure, that was something he would do. Hell, he had done it already. Of course it's you, Sakura commented. Back at the wall. Boruto really outdid himself this time, a civilian commented back at the viewers. And with this statement, Sakura flushed in embarrassment at her previous statement, with the blonde danced in his seat, back with the wall. I could only wonder what Naruto would say about this. Like father, like son, another voice interrupted. Back to the audience. And just like that, Naruto stopped dancing in his seat, his grin gone and a firm line set on his face. If he had heard right, that meant, I have a son? The shinobi asked, with eyes as wide as saucers. Troublesome. Of course it would be your son. Who could cause so much trouble? What a drag. Back at the screen, hanging on a rope dangling in front of the Hokage's monument, was a familiar mop of blonde hair. In one hand was a red paint bucket, while in the other a paintbrush. The boy was clad in black jacket with red accents, left open to reveal a white undershirt, with black shinobi pants accompanied by black sandals. The figure was happily moving from one face to the next as he mercilessly graffitied the stone faces. The boy had blonde hair that was smooth along the length but spiky at the tips, resembling a leaf. Krillin eyes sparkled with mirth, and, not unlike his father, the boy possessed whisker birthmarks. Back at the audience, wow, I gotta say, the kid looks a lot like you, Naruto, commented offhandedly, and it was true. She could easily see that familiar resemblance. Although it begs the question, who is the mother? Naruto paid no attention to her, his eyes fixed at his son, not noticing a blushing Hyuga who was surely hoping for a certain possibility. Back with the screen. Reaching the sixth, Boruto prepared his brush to paint the face of his father's sensei, Kakashi Harake. Back with the audience, no way. The orange book had fallen out of the copyins, likewise the cigarette stick that had made residence between the lips of Asuma as well. I became Hokage? Kakashi asked, no one in particular. Everyone had their eyes on the Jonin, who apparently became their Hokage. Back with the screen. That was until a hand clamped down on his and irate voice rang true. Boruto couldn't help the grin that formed on his face. He turned towards the speaker of the voice. Dad, you came! The prankster exclaimed at the sudden appearance of his father before he parted. But that's unfair. Sunshin isn't allowed. Naruto Uzumaki glared half-heartedly at his son. He wasn't angry. It would be hypocritical if he was. But he was sure as hell annoyed at the boy's antics. His blonde hair had been cut short since his youth. Not completely abandoning his love for orange, Naruto wore a long-sleeved button-down shirt with black stripes along the cuffs. Similar like his son, Naruto also wore black shinobi pants with black sandals. Thrown over this was his pride and joy, the Hokage cloak. Back with the audience. Yatta! Naruto shouted in glee. There was no doubt about it now. Naruto had become the Hokage. I'm the Hokage! I'm the Hokage! Naruto sang while almost most of the others had a gobsmacked look on their faces. Congratulations, Naruto-kun. Risen smiled, his eyes prideful with glee. No way, the doe became Hokage? Impossible, Sasuke whispered, completely ignoring the dancing Ganin. Congratulations, Naruto-kun, a certain girl thought. Back with the screen. A fist crashed onto the boy's head. Wincing under the blow, Boruto allowed his Uzumaki blood to run rampant. What the hell was that for you, you shitty old man? Back with the audience. What was that, you brat? Back with the screen. What was that, you brat? The Hokage shouted at the boy. Boruto parted and tilted his head away from his father. He would never say it out loud, but Boruto loved his father and was upset that he had hardly got to see him anymore because of his job. So whenever he could, Boruto would replicate his father's pranks so he could get his attention. Back with the audience. That's so sad, cool. And the rest of the Konomichis couldn't help but agree. It was obvious to see that the boy was hurting from not being able to see his father. Asuma couldn't help but relate to that. Back with the screen, Naruto glared softened, and in one fluid motion, he grabbed his son and jumped up towards the top of the fort's head, and place Naruto spent most of his time. And right now, Naruto could see the irony. Whenever Naruto had felt lonely because he didn't know who his parents were. Back with the audience, Naruto shrunk under the gaze of his classmates when they heard that. To them, Naruto was always so happy, so it was surprising to hear about this side of him. Back with the screen, he would always come here to vent on top of the fort's head, not knowing that it was the same fourth Hokage who was his father. Look out there, tell me, what do you see? The village. Boruto answered his father. No. Naruto shook his head. What I see is my family. Whenever I look out my window, I see my brothers and sisters going along their businesses. I see my aunts and uncles living in peace. And most importantly, I see any and all of my children playing and training, and in their hearts burn the will of fire. This village is my family, and so are you. So I want you to know, Boruto, even if you don't get to see me a lot, I still care about you, my family, about all, your mother and your sister, okay? Naruto finished his speech with a wide grin on his face and his eyes shut, missing the tears that welled at the corners of his son's eyes. Back with the audience. That was profound. Kurenai spoke through the silence that had settled as they listened to Naruto's speech. It was strange to believe that it was the same blonde menace that loved to prank others would be the one who spoke like that. It would seem that the boy had grown monumentally throughout the years. Back with the screen, Naruto then stood back up before placing his hand on Naruto's shoulders. How about this? If you clean this up before the five Kages meeting, I'll teach you one of my techniques. Naruto bribed his son. You promise? You have my word. Boruto grinned, just like his father did before this. With a loud Tate Bassa, he was off to the side of the cliff and getting ready to work. Back with the audience, the connection faded out and everyone was left in a slight state of awe. But who could have blamed them? They had just seen the future. The future. Not only Kakashi had apparently become Hokage, but so had Naruto, the dead lost. So it would be sensible to believe that they were in a state of shock, which was only broken when one Sakura Haruno had jumped up and went towards the seal to show her future. Maybe I'll see if I end up with Sakura, Sasuke-kun. Sakura stood atop the ceiling matrix that the third Hokage had scribbled on the floor of his office. Clasping her hands together, she sent a pulse of chakra towards her feet, and the seemingly random scribbles glowed blue before the seal on the wall, once again glowing just like they had before. This time over, they presented a different scene. On the screen, a much older Sakura sighed as a black crow flew overhead, a soft caw echoing throughout the large backyard. The sun had reached its peak altitude in a clear sky. A soft breeze blew stray leaves in a restless dance in the wind, gliding lazily around the women of the house. Back with the artist, Naruto, seeing a much older Sakura, blushed at the woman displayed in projection. The adult version of this teammate was no doubt more beautiful than his pre-pubescent comrade. Wow, forehead, you grew up pretty nicely, complimented her best friend turned rival. Sakura was about to say something back to Ino, but the Yamanaka beat her to it. But but he still had that massive forehead. A large tick mark bulged on top of Pinket's head, and Ino backhanded compliment. Shut up, Ino pig. Back with the screen. A sigh left Sakura's lips. She tilted her head to the left slightly, causing her chin-length pink hair to sway along her movements. Emerald eyes reflected a scene of long for something, a form-fitting, sleeveless crimson kimono dress hugging her body and stopped just below her knees. Throwing over all this was a white apron, hinting at domestic work. There was light sagging beneath her eyes, evidence to her work hours at the hours, yet a light smile still adorned her lips. The Konoichi stood at a respectable height of just over 160 centimeters. The last identifiable feature of the woman was the violent diamond mark in the middle of her forehead. Back with the audience. Well, this is interesting. Kurne remarked at the sight of the mark on Sakura's forehead. What is Kurne sensei? Asked the ever shy Yuga Harris, barely being able to utter the question. Could blame her. Not only was she in the presence of her father, but the Hokage, Inartakun of all persons, was here as well. It was a miracle that the girl hadn't fainted yet. She means the mark on Sakura's forehead that her had answered for the heiress. After all, it was a student who had created the technique. It's called the strength of 100 seals. It is an incredible powerful technique that can only be done by persons with perfect chakra control. In fact, the only person who has this mark is my student, Tsunade, one of the Sanin. All the members of the Konoha 12 had their jaw drops on the floor. Sakura, the raging fangirl, had somehow replicated a technique known only to the strongest Konoichi. The future is really not what they expected. First Naruto was Hokage, then Sakura is super strong. What is next? The 5 countries have some sort of alliance? Yeah, right. Like that will happen. I think it goes without saying that Sakura managed to become Tsunade-sama's apprentice sometime in future, Kakashi commented. Back with the screen, she continued what it was she was doing, namely hanging wet clothes to dry in the sun, executing the task while whistling a tune. She was unprepared for what or when the back door slid open and a dark-haired girl stepped outside. Corsy black hair styled in large bank that was swept to the left side and her hair cut at the nape of her neck. The girl wore glasses, pink in color, over coal eyes. The girl wore a dress similar to her mother, but where her mother's had no noticeable design, hers had a zipper that ran its length down the middle. The dress stopped mid-thigh to reveal white shorts. Knee-length socks led to Konoichi issue sandals. Welcome home, Sarada, Sakura greeted her daughter. Back with the audience, Sasuke had frozen when Sarada had entered the picture. The reason being the girl looked like an Uchiha. The facial structure might have been reminiscent of his pink-haired teammate, but those eyes and hair were undoubtedly that of an Uchiha, but that couldn't be. The only way that girl was an Uchiha was if he was the father, and if he was the father, then the mother was. His train of thoughts were derailed by the loud squeal Sasuke had distinctively recognized as a fangirl. His eyes met Sakura's, and he could see she had reached the same conclusion as him. Oh, sweet tomatoes on a stick! This can't be happening! Yes, I married Sasuke-kun, Sakura shouted with glee, not noticing that sitting fury of one Yamanaka. No, you don't! Yes, I do, Sakura retorted back before she wiggled her eyebrows. And so does Sasuke-kun, Sakura joked, while poking fun at her rival. Yup, she was gonna brag now. I don't get it. Why do you guys think that Sakura married Sasuke? Naruto asked. In his mind, Sakura was gonna marry him. If he could get Hokage, why couldn't he get Sakura as well? Sasuke, who had been silently watching, decided to finally speak up. Because, dope, that girl there is definitely an Uchiha. We don't know that yet. Back with the screen, Sakura spun to greet her daughter, wearing the Uchiha clan crest on her back. Back with the audience. Ha! Told ya! Naruto just frowned and pouted. Back with the orb, but stopped when she noticed the crestfallen expression on her daughter's face, smiling. Sakura knelt before her daughter before cupping her chin. What's wrong? Did Boruto prank you again? No. It has nothing to do with Boruto. Did this time, Sarada told her mother. It's not like I care what that idiot does anyway. That's not what you told me last time, Sakura teased, then giggled when she saw the furious blush on her daughter's face. It was too easy to tease her daughter, although she wondered what her husband would have thought if he knew his daughter had a crush on Naruto's son. Back with the audience, there was no need before there was no need for that because the Uchiha was fuming, glaring at the blonde menace. Besides him, Sakura was already thinking what was going to happen. Sasuke told him exactly what he was thinking though. You keep your son away from my daughter. Needless to say, Naruto got the message. Back with the screen. It's not that, Sarada explained. It's well, I wonder. Sarada tried to explain before stopping. She had no idea how to confront the problem she was facing without making her mother uncomfortable. What is it, Sarada? You can tell me. Sakura prompted. Well, it's that I saw Boruto today with his dad. Back with the audience. That's me. Shut up, Baka, and let me talk to my daughter. Hi, Sakura-chan. Back with the orb and Shikadai with his dad. Back with the audience. Who's Shikadai? Oh, what a drag. Probably my kid, the lazy Nara. Concluded. After all, his family was notorious for naming all their kids with the first term Shika. Probably too lazy to think of for a different name, though. Back with the screen, and I was wondering what your father is like. Sakura finished for her daughter, and if the pain expression on her daughter's face was anything to go by, she was right. Sakura stood up and sighed before she led her daughter inside and set her on the couch. Sakura went to the master bedroom, which she would have shared with her husband if he was around, but that wasn't something she would dwell on now. She had something else in mind. Shuffling through a myriad of stuff, she found what she was looking for, a black photo album. She went back down the stairs and met the curious eyes of her long daughter, her pride and joy. Come here. She motioned Sarada closer. With that done, she opened the album to reveal a picture of a certain team. In the middle of the picture was a smiling Sakura with her eyes closed. To her left and right were Sasuke and Naruto, who were too busy scowling at each other to pay attention to the camera. Beside them was Kakashi, with his hands both on Sasuke and Naruto's heads, clearly amused at the two boys' antics. As you can see, your father is the best at showing his feelings, but Sakura flipped through the pages to show another picture on an exhausted Sakura laying in the bed, yet right on her face. Seated in her chair beside her was a man with black hair with a long bang covering one of his eyes. The man was too busy smiling at the small bundle in his arms, a baby. Sarada, know that your father will always love you. He might not have been here for a few days or years, but what he's doing now is very important. So when he comes home, you can spend all the time you want with him, okay? Back with the audience. Such a happy moment, Hinata said. She was happy for Sakura because she got what she wanted, but was even happier that this meant that Naruto hadn't ended up with his crush, so that meant she had a better chance now. Sasuke had a different reaction. He slowly and subtly grabbed Sakura's hand before smiling at his future wife. Blushing and looking in the other direction, he muttered to her, Thanks for what you said to her. Ah, Kazashi, look at our little girl all grown up, Nobuki Haruno exclaimed while grabbing her husband's hands, effectively ruining the moment. Back with the screen. Sure, Mom, Sada agreed. Hey, Mom. Yes, honey. Is it true that Lord Seventh and Dad first was Dad's first kiss? Back with the audience. The unexpected question had both boys sputtering while the others who had seen the incident cracked up laughing. Back with the screen. At the other side of the village, Naruto felt a tingle run down his spine. One he knew distinctively. Sakura was angry and at him, and for some reason he blamed his absent teammate for that. Damn you, Sasuke! Back with the audience. With those last words, the screen flickered out of existence and reverted back to the ceiling matrix. So, who's next? Kiba asked. As this is where I'm going to be leaving this part of, guys. I hope you like this one, and if you do, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and comment down below if you like more part of this series and the series that I uploaded before this. And this is Apollo Uchiha, and I'm signing out. Peace.